targeted lists. So, what we talked about before was that targeted lists, one of the big ones is pre-foreclosures. Let me explain what this is, pre-foreclosures. Anytime a mortgage company wants to foreclose on a property, they hire a foreclosing attorney to foreclose on the property or start the foreclosure process. One of the steps in all 50 states that pre-foreclosures must go through is that they must submit either to the local newspaper or some or other advertising medium. They must post that the property is going to foreclosure. And so in some cases a lis pendens is filed. In other situations it's a different document. But whatever actually the document's called, at some point when somebody is far enough behind on their mortgage payments that the mortgage company hires a foreclosing attorney, at some point it becomes public notice that that property is going into foreclosure. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's where the pre-foreclosure list comes from. It's the idea that it's become public notice. Now, not every state is a good state to target pre-foreclosures. Let me give you a couple examples. Tennessee, Georgia. Those are two states where from the time that the foreclosure notice is posted on some public forum, whether it's a newspaper, legal newspaper, or something, to the time it actually forecloses is only like 3-4 weeks. That's not enough time for you to get to that homeowner and then potentially move it over to somebody who's going to do something with that lead. So certain states this isn't going to work. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to evaluate the length. Evaluate the length. The length of what? The length of from when that pre-foreclosure lead or name comes out to when it actually goes to foreclosure. How do you do that? Well, this is going to require some sleuthing. I want you to do some research. Look at the local legal newspaper. Look at the normal newspaper in your area, the business newspaper, and look and go find the foreclosure listings. Go look at those foreclosure listings and look at the dates. Look at when it was posted versus when it's going to foreclosure. Is it going into foreclosure in 3 or 4 weeks? Or what about 3 or 4 months? If you've got a couple of months, then all thumbs up. If you've got 3 to 4 weeks, thumbs down. Does that make sense? Now, there are oftentimes legal newspapers in major metropolitan areas that can make things a little bit easier, but in almost all areas that at some point some foreclosing attorney is advertising that the property is going into foreclosure in a newspaper. But you can also just Google for it. I mean, you can Google for foreclosing attorneys in your area. So you've got to do some sleuthing. Now, you can buy the list of pre-foreclosures. A lot of different places. You can go to listsource.com. You can get the foreclosure list, this pre-foreclosure list there. You could get it at RealtyTrack. You could get it at, there's something called Foreclosure Radar. That's more for on the West Coast. That's like California and Arizona, maybe Washington.com here too. And there are others. There might be something local. You can pay for it. My understanding is you can get it for free as well, but that's more of the manual way, where you go into that legal newspaper, or maybe you do the searching online. I think Google or maybe Zillow might be providing this data now. So do some research, do some digging, and you are looking for pre-foreclosures. Pre-foreclosures. You're not looking for the ones that have been foreclosed upon. They have to be pre-foreclosures. Why? Because once the bank owns it, once it's a foreclosure, totally different ballgame. Different business, not your, that's not your wheelhouse. That's not where you're going to find your deals. That's not where this entire system of deal finding is going to work. So just leave those all alone. I know it's going to be real tempting. You're going to be like, you want to go, but what about foreclosures, Phil? What about? No foreclosures, just pre-foreclosures. The owner of the property needs to be the homeowner, not the bank. Okay, we got that off our chest. Woo! Okay, good deal. All right, so you've evaluated the length, you've got at least 2 months in your area or more between the time that it becomes public notice to the time that it actually been foreclosed upon. What you then have to do is either one, you can go try to track down the homeowner's contact information. Now, we use a system called People Search Now. People Search Now.com. This may help you track down who the what the phone number is. Maybe. It's pretty rare, but it can happen. We've also seen where there's a service called Land Voice. Land Voice. Now, what I'm going to do is just below this video, I'm going to have links to all this stuff, if that's okay, all right? So I have a link to Land Voice as well. And so this could potentially give you phone numbers for these pre-foreclosures. Potentially. But I wouldn't bet on it. So yes, you could try to track them down with this and potentially get their phone number. Or maybe Land Voice could provide some phone numbers too, maybe. But that's going to be pretty rare. So we're going to go ahead and definitely put that in your memory bank, maybe give it a try. But the key is now you're going to have to knock on doors. You're going to have to go to the property and knock on the door. Now, a lot of pre-foreclosures are vacant. So here we go. Here's how we're going to start this. The first place you want to focus on knocking on doors is when it's vacant. When it's vacant, go knock on the neighbor's doors. Ask them if they know how to get in touch with that person. Say, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with them. I'm trying to help them, and want to reach out to them before their house goes into foreclosure. I might be able to help them. Do you have their contact information? And you're going to have to test and tweak what you say a little bit with these neighbors until they get more comfortable with potentially wanting to turn over the information to you. A lot of times the property's going to be vacant, to which you talk to the neighbors. It's amazing. You wouldn't believe how much the neighbors can know. So you definitely want to knock on all the neighbors around there until you find someone that can help you. You also want to, potentially look around the house and see if there's any evidence of any sort of information. You can also leave like a little stick-it note, maybe a little post-it note on the doors, right near the handle, saying, hey, I tried to stop by. If you'd like some help with your house, please give me a call. Yeah, you can do a business card, whatever. I think they read it a lot better when you do a stick-it note. So usually it's going to be vacant. What happens if they're actually there? So they, you knock on the door, and they, I'm just going to say they come to the door. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so it's easier when it's vacant, right? You go look around, nobody's there, maybe you talk to a neighbor or two, you do some sleuthing, maybe you try People Search Now to track them down. But what happens when there is a car in the driveway, there's a dog barking inside, and they're home? Well, you go up to the door, okay, and here's what you do. And then you take a step back. So you knock on the door. So here's our door. And we'll do a little here, got a little peephole, and here. All right. So you got your door here, and you knock on it. You can see their little eyeball that they're looking, and so they open the door. Now, first of all, you want to be a step or two back, right? You want to give them a little bit of space. And then here's what you're going to want to do. So now I'm going to switch here, and so now you're going to be the person that's opening the door. And so I'm the one. I'm the deal finder. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to start by saying, "Hi, are you?" And then this is when you want to say the owner's name. Services like Realty Track give the person's name, and then usually these foreclosure listings show you who the owner is. So you'd say, "Hey, so is this Anna? Or are you Anna?" And they'll go, "Who wants to know?" So if they say, "No, I'm not Anna," say, "Oh, are you a tenant? Are you renting this property?" Because see, sometimes the property's for rent, and that's perfect. Because usually you can talk to the tenant and you can say, "Oh, I need to get in touch with the property owner, the landlord. They haven't been paying the mortgage. It's about to go to foreclosure. I might be able to help you though." If you've got their contact information, email anything. I can get in touch with them. Maybe I can help you be able to stay in this home potentially. So the reason why you start with "Are you Anna?" is because, or whatever their person's name is. I'm just using Anna. Is because you're fleshing out whether or not it's a tenant or if it's a person living there. All right. So person says, "Well, who wants to know?" This is you say, "Well, I'm Phil, and I'm here to help you with the pending problem that you currently have with your house." Now, you notice what I said there. I'm here to help you with a pending problem with your house. Pending problem with your house. Well, what they're typically going to say is this: "Oh, I took care of that." Now, you're going to use what's called the RAP technique. RAP. Repeat, affirm, pose a question. Repeat, affirm, pose a question. Repeat. "Oh, you took care of it." Affirm. "Well done." Pose a question. "How did you solve your problem?" "Oh, well, it's great. It's a long story. My attorney's taking care of it." Repeat. "Oh, your attorney's taking care of it." Affirm. "That's fantastic." Pose a question. "How is your attorney solving the problem?" I don't really know." Repeat. "You don't really know?" Affirm. Well, in this case, it's kind of hard to affirm. Okay. Pose a question. "Well, the only reason why I'm standing here is because it's been put on public notice that your property is going to go to foreclosure here shortly. And if you have hired an attorney to help you, they're not doing their job." Look, I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news here. I'm just the messenger. But I work with some people who might be able to potentially help you. Now, obviously they can't help you if you want to stay in the home. But if you have any interest in selling the home, there's some people that I've worked with that could help you. Is that something that you'd be interested in talking about, or probably not? "No, I don't want to talk about it anymore. My problem's solved." That's when you say, "Okay, well, let me ask you this. In the event your attorney doesn't solve your problem, could I call you back in a month just to check on things?" And that's where you'd ask for their phone number. So you want to get their contact information. You want to get their email, some way to call them back or reach back out to them. In most cases, they're going to always say they've taken care of the problem. But if they've taken care of the problem, they wouldn't be on the list. Does that make sense? So they're probably either A, lying, or they just don't understand what's going on. Either way, you need to repeat, affirm, pose until you break through and get to a point where you can start to talk with them. Now, the most you may get to is a phone number or an email. If they give you a phone number, test it right then and there. Say, "All right, great, let me make sure I've got you saved in my phone." Type it in and see if it rings to their phone. That'll catch them to see if they lied to you on the phone number. Look, these little techniques I'm sharing with you, we learned in the field. But this is going to make a huge, huge difference in you actually connecting with these people. You see, these people on the pre-foreclosure list are getting tons of letters in the mail. But nobody's knocking on their door. Only you are. So you're penetrating better than anybody else. And so when you get there, though, don't squander your opportunity. Stick around, use the RAP technique, and break through. Now, again, in the subsequent video, in step 2, we're going to talk about asking the right questions and getting down to the nitty-gritty of the situation. But right here, we're just talking about connecting. And you see what we've done here. We've gone from getting the list. We've gone from verifying that that list is going to work for your area. I mean, there's enough time. Then you're getting you're going to try to get phone numbers, but you're door knocking. And if they're vacant, that's where you're talking to the neighbors. When you first get to the door, say you're asking the person's name. Are you Anna? Are you Jim? So that you can figure out if it's going to be a leased or not. Because if it's a tenant, then you need to get that landlord's information as quickly as you can there. And then lastly, if it is them, to use the RAP technique to break through. They're going to be more scared of you than you are of them. See, they're thinking you're a bill collector. They're thinking you're the mortgage company. They're frightened. So put them at ease. Step back a little bit, put them at ease. and be prepared for the door to slam in your face. It's going to happen. You're trying to help people here, but some of them don't want the help. Okay? It's going to happen. All right. So that right there, this is where I got going when I first got started. Before I had a mentor and stuff, I was doing this. I did this for 2 years. Knocking on doors of pre-foreclosures. Be careful of dogs. Make sure there's no dogs in the front yard. One time there was a dog in his little dog house right next to the front door. So I come at the door, sitting there kind of waiting. It looked like they might be home, you know. I'm doing this, and then I hear grrr, grrr. I'm like, where's that coming from? And then all of a sudden I look down, and there's a pit bull right there. I jumped and ran as fast as I could, and he was right on my heels, literally. Woof! I mean, I was just boom! I was the fastest I've ever run in my entire life. He didn't bite me. It was a miracle. So be careful of the dog in the front yard. But outside of that, I mean, this is really actually kind of fun and enjoyable. You get out there, you get to see these different properties. It's fun. You're kind of like a detective, if you will, because you see this big press. Sometimes it's a beautiful home on a lake. And it's so neat to be a part of that experience. So you're actually going to have fun with this. But what your goal is to connect with the owner. Get their phone number, get their email, or connect with them directly in person. Now the good news, and this is beautiful, you're not the one buying the property. So you can just say you work with some people that can help them, and then you'll ask a bunch of questions. And that again is in step 2. We'll talk about that. All right, so that is kind of the majority of targeted lists. That's the bread and butter. But you may be saying, well, Phil, what if I live in Tennessee? What if I live in Georgia and all of a sudden I can't really use that list? Okay, well, let's talk about another group or another list that's really, really good, and that is your estate sales or your moving sales. So we're going to say moving / estate, you know, even garage sale. These right here can be really productive. Now typically they're more popular on the weekends, right? The Saturday, Sunday, Friday kind of zone. But these right here can be great. So this would be like in Craigslist. Craigslist. That would be in a newspaper. That's where you'd find these listings. And, you know, if they have a phone number, you just call the phone number and ask them if they've got a house that they're looking to sell. But if there's no phone number, you just be driving around. And the idea is you get there and you try to get to the owner. You say, hey, are you the owner? Are you guys considering selling this house? I know you're in the moving. Now, in some cases, you'll go to a moving sale and you'll see a real estate sign in the front yard. Well, that's when you know that they've already got it for sale with an agent, so that's not going to work. And you're going to find that a little bit more here in the next section. We're talking about qualifying. We don't want to mess with properties that are already listed. You want to avoid those altogether. So we've talked about how we want to avoid foreclosures. You want to avoid listed properties as well. Okay, so estate sales, these are situations where someone has passed away. So these might be more of a long-term follow-up, but they could be very productive. You want to talk to the executor of the estate. And that person may or may not be the one handling the estate sale, but they usually are. The executor is usually the one handling the estate sale. And so you want to talk with the executor of the estate. And these can be a great opportunity as well. Some of our best deals come from situations where someone passed away and then the heirs want to get rid of their property, but they don't want to get top dollar for it. They just want to get rid of it. And then to a lesser extent would be these garage sales. Sometimes people have a garage sale because they're broke and they're falling behind on payments and they need help. But these are the two main ones, moving and estate sales. And so literally you can just go from so if you've got a full-time job right now and you want to get this thing going, well, this would be a perfect way to do it. Maybe just spend each Saturday several hours just going from moving to estate sales, just going from one-to-one or going to these pre-foreclosures and door knocking them. In this case, you can call them up front. I mean, you can call, but more likely you're going to have to door knock. But this isn't so much of a door knock because, you know, they're already out front. They're already selling stuff. I mean, that's a lot easier. This is a lot more low-pressure way to connect with people as well. There may not be as many good deals, but it's a lot more low pressure because, you know, they're happy to hear from you. And there might be some other people that are there, so you may have to wait for some of the people to leave so you can ask them and just say, hey, look, have you ever considered selling your house? I work with some real estate investors that are looking to buy some houses right now. And that needs to be your line. I'm working with some real estate investors that are looking to buy some houses right now. That's your opening line. Does that make sense? So real simple, real easy. You don't have to be the big guy in the room. You're just the one that's going to get this information. And so you can even tell them, you say, look, that's my role. I'm a deal finder. You know, I go to these estate sales, these moving sales. I mean, that's my role. So I just reach out and just see if there's anybody looking to, you know, sell their property and wants to get rid of it, you know, and not deal with the hassles of a real estate agent. So that's kind of your pitch. Does that make sense? Okay, good deal. All right, so that's really your targeted list. If you focus on these targeted lists, I'm telling you, you're going to make some huge, huge strides. Because these right here represent what we have discovered as the most potent. There are tons of lists. Divorce lists, there are all kinds of stuff, but these fit perfect for door knocking. Okay, so we've learned our lessons the hard way. We know where the winners are. And what we talked about with pre-foreclosures and then with this stuff, this is a great zone. And so you, one more thing I want to add to this as we wrap up here this section, and that's this. That's a mapping / route software. This stuff is free online, okay? But what you can do is you can plug in a bunch of addresses and then it'll route the most efficient way to go from one to the other. Okay, so it'll give you the routes here, there, here, you know. So you get your points. And so it'll do that for you. And I strongly recommend that. And it's free. Just Google it. You know, Google for a routing software so you can get the most efficient route with like the 4 or 5 or 10 addresses you have. Okay? All right, great. So that encompasses step 1 of connecting targeted lists. Coming up next, we're going to talk about on the drive, on the way to these. Hitting up for sale by owners, for rents and vacant properties. See you in the next video.